Hey everybody, it's Kairos. Recently I've been asking myself the question, what causes tilt? And I've thought through strategies to reduce or even eliminate tilt in my gameplay and the gameplay of the people I coach. We'll cover how I define tilt, what causes it, and how you can reduce its stranglehold of your LP. If this video helps you, please consider subscribing. Over the past year that I've been uploading to this channel, less than 7% of my views have come from subscribers, and I'd love for you to hop on board as I pursue my goal of reaching 10,000 subs. Now let's start with my definition of tilt. I believe tilt is when the actions of your teammates or yourself cause you to shift from a logical to an emotional state of decision making. This is when you start making statements like, I don't care if I lose because that means my inting teammate does too, or we deserve to lose because of how badly they played, or there's nothing I could have done with these teammates, it's unwinnable. You can gauge your level of tilt based on your motivations for certain decisions and your own mental talk to yourself. When acting out of emotion, you may say, I'm ganking top because bot lane is inting trash and is going to keep dying. Versus a logical motivation for that same action would be, I'm playing around top because we would lose a 2v3 bot and fall further behind, so I'm going to play towards the better win condition and the potential of getting back in the game. When tilted, your decisions become driven by spite, impulse, or autopilot. Needless to say, your chances of winning when tilted are incredibly low. And untilting can be a long and difficult process. Few people can just flip a switch and return to a rational or logical mentality once they cross that emotional threshold. It usually takes a significant break from the game to reset your mental 100%. So the question is, how do I avoid going from logic to emotion? I believe the primary antidote to tilt is to only focus on your own decisions in gameplay. You've probably heard sayings like this before, of the only person you can control is yourself, or focus on what you can control. And I believe this is really the mindset that a lot of players are missing. The majority of players will react to mistakes by instantly assigning blame to their teammates. This is driven by an internal belief that you're simply at the mercy of your teammates for every win or loss. This is a coin flip mentality. And if you truly believe that, then you feel completely out of control in your games. Then you'll lack the control or feel helpless, and that creates an emotional response. Also, by blaming your teammates, you become completely blind to your own errors and miss opportunities for growth as a player, which will help you climb in the long run. On the other hand, consider a player whose first reaction to a mistake is to accept responsibility for their actions. They immediately consider the several other options that they had to prevent a negative situation or to create a positive situation. That person believes their actions can and will change the results of the game. It's not a coin flip, which keeps them in control of their emotions and makes them feel agency over the game. When you're in control, you're able to maintain the logic and reasoning required to play consistently at your highest capabilities. Also, by accepting responsibility, this type of player will find it much easier to identify the areas of their gameplay which could use improvement. And in my mind, the first step of improving as a player is first to admit that you make mistakes, and then second to work to identify the areas that you're deficient in to start working on them. And the tilted player will never make it through these steps. The player who accepts responsibility doesn't tilt when things go wrong in their game. If something happens that was truly out of their power to prevent, they accept it and move on without hurting their mentality. If something happens that they could prevent, they're more likely than other players to recognize it and adapt in future games and to find success later on. Practically speaking, I believe the best way to combat tilt in your ranked games is to begin controlling your reactions to negative plays. And instead of assigning blame, you look at, what was my responsibility? Did I do my responsibility? Okay, then you don't have to worry about it. So instead of saying, why did they do that? And asking your teammates and blaming your teammates, ask, should I have done anything differently to prevent that? Sometimes the answer is no, and you just move on. Some of the best advice I've gotten is this. When you make an obvious misplay, state the mistake out loud to yourself, followed by what the correct play was. This will help you process through it as you're going and remember that when you are thinking back on the game later. Another tip is when someone blames you for something in chat, just type a simple, my bad, MB. It may not even be your fault, but in most cases, it will de-escalate the situation and you can go back to the replay later and review what the best decision was. Some players will flame you even more when you take responsibility, but those players would just be toxic regardless, and at least you made the attempt and the effort to de-escalate, and if they keep typing, just mute them and move on. Another thing that's important to note, it's really vital to recognize when emotions from real life are impacting your gameplay. I'm not saying to avoid solo queue when you're already upset. I know that a lot of us sometimes see League as a temporary escape from some of our real life worries, but it's really important to recognize when you likely have a shorter fuse than usual and take extra precautions to accept responsibility and avoid tilt. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope that this will help you recognize and stop tilt before it destroys your games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.